In this section, we'll be exploring methods to insert data into a table. So the insert statement is responsible for adding rows into a table. It comes in three flavors. They're listed here. The first one is insert into table followed by values, and then you give the values. This is what we have seen so far. The next one is insert into table default values. We'll have to see this. Insert into table followed by a select statement. Again, this is something that we saw very briefly in the past. We'll look into this again. Let's now look at the first form of the insert statement. It's responsible for creating one or more rows in an existing table. So this is the format it takes. If the column list is omitted, then the order in which the values are specified corresponds to the order in which the columns were specified as part of table creation. Secondly, the table columns that do not appear in the column list are populated with the default column value specified, if not with null. Let's explore points 1, 2 and 3 with sufficient examples. Here on the slide, you'll see that there is a create table statement for creating a table called student with two columns, name and DOB stands for date of birth. So here we're going to insert just one row where the column names are specified. So we have insert into student followed by the column names and then values followed by the values that you want to specify for these columns. So name will hold the value S1 and DOB will hold the value 2010 0101. Now here's how you insert more than one row. You specify the columns that you want inserted, and then as part of values you separate the individual rows with a comma. So you group individual rows within these brackets and then you separate individual rows with a comma. This statement will create two rows. The first row will contain the name as S2 and date of birth as 2001 0202. The second row, or another row that gets inserted, will now have the name S3 as a student name and the date of birth will correspond to 2002 0610. This is a method. I'd recommend you use this format instead of the one below. So the one below, that is this statement, is used to highlight this particular point. That is, the order in which the values are inserted corresponds to the order in which the fields are specified as part of the create table statement. So if you look here, there is no column spec like here. However, S4 will be identified as a name because as per this schema, name is the first column and S4 is the first value here. Similarly, date of birth is the second column and date of birth is given as a second one here. So that's what this is meant for. Please don't do this. It'll be a maintenance headache for everyone who looks at the project other than you. And finally, here comes the case where default values are inserted. So there is no default value specified. That is, you don't see any default keyword here. So the assumed default is null. So that's why when you insert the student with just the name called S6, a value of null will be inserted for the date of birth field. Let's now see what the output of these statements will be on the SQLite prompt. Here's the outcome of executing all the statements in a SQLite shell. We have a student table with name and date of birth, all the insert statements as shown on the slide. Here's the outcome of the select statement. S1 through S5 have the corresponding date of birth values associated with them. S6 has null associated with date of birth because it was never specified as part of the insert statement. And since we don't have any defaults, which we'll soon explore, null is considered as the default value for a column if not provided.